as this says we're live and I verify it, I tagged you. But if it's not up on your page right now, let me know and I'll try tagging you again.
Alrighty, I'll check it.
1 second. I got to make sure I said public. Hi, everybody. We're just doing this thing. Here, I just made it public and I'll make sure you're tagged.
Yep, we're good.
Awesome. Hi, Facebook. Welcome to Comic Spot. This is session number 646, I think it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love, see, the whole reason, Ginny, I'll get to introducing you in a second, but the whole reason, you guys, that I'm doing this isn't for me. It's for people like Ginny, Sinbad, baby comic that's on stage for the first time. I believe, I've watched comedy clubs, and I believe people, they go to comedy clubs for two reasons. They support comics for two reasons. Either they want a night out and they don't care who it is and it's a crapshoot, or they want to plan it and they want to know, like, and trust the person they're going to sit in front of. One of them, one of the people on stage, they have to know. So today, let's make that Ginny for you. Let's get to know her and see if when she comes to your town or you go to hers, if you'd want to pay money to hear the professional Gini Sikes. So let me do her intro. 1 little second, Ginny, while I read this.
Don't feel you have to read it all.
Oh, but I want to. It's so good. It's so impressive. If I can just get this to work, and it's not working for me, it's just 1 second, and I'll go to the actual place where you sent it and read it. Here we go. Gini Sikes is an LA-based comedian and has appeared at Flappers, Second City, and multiple crime scenes. We'll explain. Second City, Flappers, OMG. A crime reporter with a master's in journalism from Columbia University. Are you getting the drift here, folks? She's no slouch. Sikes has investigated everything from opioid addiction to serial killers. She's written for the Washington Post, Essence, and the New York Times, and produced for MTV, Investigation Discovery, PBS, and more. Her book, Eight Ball Chicks, chronicles a year spent with girl gangs in 3 American cities. She also co-wrote and produced the award-winning documentary on women's rights, Equal Means Equal. Yeah, man. On a lighter note, she worked as production supervisor of the latest animation project of Matt Groening from Portland, Oregon. Yeah. I have a connection.
There you go.
Yeah. Also, where cops started.
Oh, wow.
The series Disenchantment on Netflix. When not pondering world evil, this self-proclaimed pessimist Pollyanna performs comedy to make sense of it all. She also is one of 9 comics who appears regularly on a podcast, and the name of the podcast is Serial Killers.
Oh,
right?
It's MDK Squad, which stands for Murder, Death, Kill.
Murder, Death, MDK Squad.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that in the text so that I'm sure to type that later. MDK Squad is the name of the podcast about serial killers.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Hi, welcome to Comic Spot. We're here. We get to play.
Yes, and I've seen you on many shows and you are hilarious. So I'm very honored to be on your show.
Thank you. I'm so honored to have you. Look at the rap sheet you have in your illustrious comedy career, and writing and producing and
lots of things that aren't funny, but but that somehow wind up funny, like serial killers.
Can you make serial killers funny?
You can't, well, you can't make anything about their victims funny. Obviously, there's nothing funny about that, but we do like to mock them. So if you're a murderer, you may be offended. But No, we don't. We certainly don't glorify serial killing, but it is a challenge. It's a challenge because it's kind of a downer.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like Ted Bundy, the people that were, there's so many different types of serial killers, right? So,
You know, oddly though, they share weird similarities, like you start to talk about them and there's so many, you know, uh weird, like Ed Gein and this German serial killer, they both, when they were young, saw an animal slaughtered and orgasmed at the sight of it. You could find more than those two. So I really think there's a genetic component to it, and then it either gets triggered in life or doesn't. I mean, I do think that something is different in their makeup when they come out of the womb.
me too. Have you ever gone to a prison to interview a serial killer?
I've gone to prison to interview killers, but
Okay.
not a serial killer. I actually did women who killed, and I went into the California women prison years and years ago, and all the women they were in a support group, and they'd all been extremely abused by their husbands.
Yeah.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And they ranged from like 18 to 76.
Mhm.
But one of the women in there, Brenda Klubine, wound up changing the law in California, getting the law changed so that you could use they used to call it battered women syndrome. They don't call it that anymore because you can be a man and be battered. But
Or fish.
mhm. Or fish.
Fish is battered.
Oh,
So stupid.
no, God, I love that. See, that's the type of joke we tell on the serial killer podcast.
Go for it. You can have it.
So,
Yeah. So if you ever go again and interview any killers, I would love to take my interview thing in there and interview a killer.
yeah, okay. And it's harder to get in now in general, but if I do, I will let you know. We can do a podcast live from there.
Yeah.
I
Oh
did
my,
interview one woman who, this is the weirdest thing. She told me that this wasn't a battered woman. She told me she had a boyfriend, and with her boyfriend, she killed her other boyfriend. And she said that he forced her to do, the boyfriend one forced her to kill boyfriend two, but they killed her in his house. They cut off his ponytail, which they kept in their glove compartment. So it's like, okay.
that's the other thing that they must have in common. They like to keep little samples from their victims sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, yeah. It's like I guess it's like in the olden days when you carried a locket of your lover's hair. In this case, you just keep your lover's head.
Yes. I want to go back into your childhood, and move forward in blocks of time. So you're now a comedian, you've written material, and I assume what you wrote, what I guess I shouldn't assume, did you write for the Washington Post and the Times? Did you write serious or about serial killers or comedic writing or a bunch of everything?
I am really I was trained as a journalist and I was a generalist. So I've covered architecture. I was an entertainment journalist. Uh, so it's funny, my first job was at Tiger Beat magazine, which does have a connection to serial killer because my coworker married the Night Stalker. So she would teach little girls, like how to win the heart of your favorite celebrity, and meanwhile she was winning the heart of her favorite serial killer.
Oh my gosh.
Seems
Wow.
like there's a running theme through my life, but my dad, when we were little kids, gave us a human skull to play with, and I've always thought that probably wasn't something that was the most healthy toy to give a 5-year-old.
No. Oh my gosh. Let's go into your childhood. So, where did you grow up exactly? What was your family like? How many siblings? That kind of thing.
So I grew up in a town called Wausau, Wisconsin, which until 1980 was the whitest community per capita in the country.
Wow.
And then we had, in the 1980s, we had a large influx of Hmong. So it's changed. But when I was growing up, my hair is naturally dark and I looked very, very Asian. And I had to carry around my birth certificate to prove to people that my parents were my parents. Um, but my family was eccentric. Like, that family that you don't want to go in their yard because they're weird, like the Addams family. Well, that was us.
That's so cool. So did you have people, your friends in school that didn't want to come to your house or their parents wouldn't let them?
Well, my brother, who I have one brother, his name is Rex. He was a magician and as a kid, and I did marionettes, but we would use that skull in seances. And I remember like one time, I mean, the kids were little. We didn't really mean to scare them, but it would come out and they'd go screaming out the door. And then my brother told me if he bit me on the neck one time and he said, "Hey, now you're a vampire and you will be able to fly like a bat, but first you have to go out and bite other kids." And so I was like, "Okay." I put on a towel and I ran in the yard and kept trying to bite other children until one of the older brothers chased me out with a baseball bat.
we
So,
had similar we had similar childhoods. It sounds a lot like that was my family.
well, look what happened. I guess that's why you go into comedy. What else are you going to go into except, like mortuary or funeral home business?
Yes, and you just supplied my next segue. What made you go into comedy? Did you find out early on you're funny?
I always like to be, funny, and I have written humorously, but never wanted to do it on stage. I actually have all my life I had severe stage fright. Uh, Many years ago, I worked on Dennis Leary's first show, and the staff of that show all turned out to be terrific comedy writers, who remained friends with me. Josh Weinstein, who was on The Simpsons, Chris Kelly, who was on Bill Maher. So I was surrounded by these very funny people. But it wasn't until 2 years ago I was laid off from my job at Disenchantment. And I thought, what do I want to do now that I've never done? And I decided to do storytelling, and which took a lot of guts. But a friend of mine named Joel Marshall, who's also a comic, saw me and he said, "You should take a stand-up workshop with me." And I was like, no, 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 I never want to do that. And I only did it because Joel was in the class and he made me. And it changed everything. I, it was so much fun. I should give a shout out to that instructor. Her name's Cynthia Levin. She's a comic too.
Wonderful. That was really nice of Joel Marshall to do that.
Yes. And Joe
I had
Marshall has a podcast.
I one day I booked Joel Marshall and Joel DeWitt both to do an interview, and I got their interview times mixed up, and I did not know I had two Joels the same day. And so I missed my interview with Joel Marshall, and he hasn't replied to me since.
I will get him to reply to you. Are you talking about Joe Marshall that does lunch therapy? Oh, he will do it. He's a
He has, and I
wonderful.
think he's really disappointed in me. And I go to bed every night crying about it.
Oh,
No,
we got to get Joe Marshall to hear this interview.
it really bothers me. I don't cry about it, but I mean, it bothers me. You have no idea how many times I've mixed up the interview times, and you just hope people will forgive you.
He
That's
will.
all.
He will.
Cool. Well, so somebody in your childhood, did they tell you you were funny, or at what point did you go from?
I had to be funny. I think you might, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I was a horrible looking child. I mean,
I can relate.
I looked like I was so thin. I looked like the cover model on a box for UNICEF. I was a ghastly looking kid. And so funny was my way of having friends. Like I wasn't ever going to be anybody's girlfriend. I mean, I had to wait till I was 18, but I had lots of boys that were friends. And so.
Yes. So did anybody in your life come along and before Joel Marshall, in your childhood, teachers, anybody come along and say, You might want to think about you are just naturally funny or you have a real talent.
Um, Certainly in writing, I've always been encouraged in writing. Um, and people who, like when you'd be at a dinner party and you tell a story, people would say, "Oh, you should do comedy." I would say mostly though. I mean, I had a lot of great comedy writers, male comedy writers who encouraged me. But and I did some stuff, but the it's so great about stand up is it's the only writing I don't like hate doing. Like I hate writing, but I love having written, as Dorothy Parker said. But it's hard for me, but I really enjoy writing comedy. Not that it's easy, but at least it isn't a burden.
That's great. So the very first time that you went into to do stand-up comedy, let's just, of all the things you've accomplished, let's focus on the stand-up. The very first time that you're going to do stand-up, how nervous were you and how did that go? I just love these stories.
I got really sick. I was really sick, and almost to the point where I thought I shouldn't do it. And it was in a theater that Cynthia Levin had rented, and I actually kind of felt good about my material, but I didn't feel like I was going to be able to deliver it because I couldn't think straight. Um, but this happens a lot. Actually, it wound up being one of the best performances I've ever given, and I've read that that's very common. That it's kind of like, I guess this happens in lots of performances. Let's say you do your first golf game or something. You tend to you may start really really well, and but it doesn't repeat necessarily right away. It's
Yes.
I don't know. Oh, beginner's luck. That's what they
What'd you say?
beginner's luck.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what it is, I guess.
Okay, well, that explains how the first time up there went. And so then from that, how did you move? How quickly did you move from open mics to shows to
I
everything
think
else?
so. I kept taking classes, and I think my first show was Jimmy Shin. Uh, you see him all over, and Jimmy
I
Shin has
love
a
him.
yes, isn't he a kind guy?
Yes.
He does a show called Shindig, which used to be live, and Joel Marshall introduced me to him, and he gave me my first chance, and uh, I did it a couple times before COVID, a couple times with Jimmy, but I remember one time, I don't remember if it was the first time or when, but um, it's in this in a bar, which is crowded and people are drinking, and I am more of at this point I was more of a storyteller, and I didn't totally bomb, but I definitely didn't kill, but it felt like bombing. It was,
Yeah.
and in a way it was such a great moment because I was like, this is bombing and I can survive it. It's like, it was good to go through. I don't want to go through it a lot of times, but I'm sure I will. But just, it got me over a hump. And I wouldn't want to bomb if I was auditioning for Conan, but this wasn't going to ruin my career. And
Yes.
so bombing is just part of the process.
Yes. Well, talk to me about some of the high points of doing comedy for you. You mentioned Joe Marshall and Jimmy Shin and being a writer, but tell me some of the times you went on stage, clubs you went to that stick with you.
The thing that, I mean, I'm sure you've heard other people say this, but the thing that is most forefront of my mind right now is that when COVID happened and the Zoom happened, because I'm a young comic, I'm only 2.5 years into it, and when Zoom happened, I was introduced. I live alone except for my dog, who you'll hear. I have not been lonely once during COVID, and Zoom drives me a little crazy, hurts my eyes to be on it all day long. But I've gotten this whole community of comics now that I know, and especially women who I'm friends with. Some of them live near me, but I don't see them because we were quarantined so long. But they're true friends, and I love I'm sure older, more experienced comics probably think that, oh, everybody now thinks they can do comedy because they can turn into Zoom. And I certainly understand that, especially when you've been on the road and you've put all the work in. On the other hand, it's the same thing that happened to journalism. You know, when the internet opened up, there were all these writers who were writing for free, and the level of quality could vary. But by the same token, people were great writers who were getting an opportunity to write. And I thought it's very democratic. And that's the way I feel about comedy on Zoom. You know, I'm really looking forward to being live again, you know, going on stage. But it gave me so much opportunity to hone my sets and stuff.
Absolutely. What's some of the crazy things you've experienced that you can talk about without naming names or clubs?
Oh gosh,
these are my favorite questions.
I'm always amazed what people will reveal. You hear the stereotype that, funny people are depressed, and stand-up comics have, issues. Well, I do believe that a lot of funny people are depressed. Usually if I meet somebody who's really cheerful, I think, oh, they have a dark side, because I just, that's my experience,
Right.
But
Yes.
I used to think I had a weird childhood. I don't anymore. I think I now leave it to beaver childhood after I've met stand-up comics. The things that people get up and say, who's whose genitalia they got close to and why.
Some of the stuff.
Oh, one thing that's amazing, I really like get a shout out to this person. I was at an open mic, and this young man got up and he started telling a story about how he was molested as a child, and it was a true story, by a friend's dad, and he had to go to trial. The whole time he told, and this is at a mic that's like 5 minutes, it wasn't a long time, and he told this story, and he was smiling the whole time. And I remember one point he said he was on the stand, and he said, well, if this guy molested you, why didn't he molest your friend? And he said, well, maybe he wasn't as cute as I am, or something. But everybody was you were laughing. And at the end, everybody came up to him and were like, that was great. It was just the exact blend of humor and truth and poignancy. His name is Sebastian Scale, I believe, Scales. And he has a podcast called What Happened to You? So I think that was one of the best sets of comedy I ever have. He's on YouTube as well.
Sebastian Scales.
Yeah, I should make sure that I have that name. I'll look at it while we...
That's very interesting, because just this week I met a gal who's wanting to go up on and do comedy for her first time. And I think she went and did comedy in her town this week for the first time. And she wants to get to the place where she can talk about being molested by the police.
Oh, God.
But it just happened. So.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one. She knows that she needs a little time pass, maybe a little therapy or something. But yeah, that's great that you mentioned having the right blend of the facts, the serious, and the humor. And she's searching to try to make it funny.
Yeah, and his name is Sebastian Scales. I got it right. Yeah, and he has managed to do that. She should watch his, I think he has it up on YouTube, one of his sets. I just found him remarkable, and a charming, charming guy.
I'll tell her to look that up. So here's the question I love knowing the answer to. Every comedian I've asked has a joke that gets lackluster results, but they're doing it to make a point. I know I've got a couple that I don't expect to get great results, but I'm not going to drop them because I'm making a point. Or it's the joke, it's just for me, to relax me, to get my essence out there. And I don't really care. I'm not taking the joke out, even if it gets less than good result. Do you have a couple of those?
I talk about suicide, and it's a hard subject because you don't want to make light of anybody who's been there, but I've been there, and I've been in the emergency rooms. I mean, I only once. I don't want to make it sound like it's a yearly thing every
No.
Christmas, but it's something that I only put in that I did it just so people would know that the jokes weren't meant to be cruel.
Yes.
So that's when I find tricky because I have a I don't go too much into this, but I don't have I mean, I don't get angry with people who do that. I'm like, how can you judge? But it is something that you have to tread lightly, and the only reason I talk about myself is so people realize it's not just, oh, let me think of something funny to say on this subject.
Yes.
And I've
Absolutely.
just started talking about my divorce, and I, I can make that funny. I'm not even mad about my husband and the other person anymore, but I do like mining it for jokes, and
Me
so I try
too.
to change as many of the details as I can because I'm not trying to get at anyone, but it it just does provide a lot of material.
Yes. Yes. I love, like I like talking about my marriage and how we broke up. And my coach and I are working on a joke in the class. I'm taking the class with Vanessa Hollingshead,
Oh,
and she's really great. She has a class.
oh, great! I always love to learn more.
Yeah, it's like 6 classes for $75. And you have the graduation show with Vanessa.
Wow,
Super, accomplished. That
wow.
and she has. So one of the jokes I'm telling now is about how you know, I have a previous joke about everybody in Portland looks like they're a Paul Bunyan statue, and then when I get to my ex-husband, I say, I wanted to kill him, but not, mostly because he reminded me of a Paul Bunyan statue, and he had big ears and he cheated, a lot, so like we're working on that joke right now, so.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I wanted to do something that was more personal, but then um, I don't think of myself as a bitter person, but bitterness sounds funnier than everything's cool.
Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite topic that, over the 2.5 years you've done comedy, what's been your favorite topic to cover? Or has that changed?
Well, it probably changes, but I really hate unicorns, and I have a bit about unicorns. They drive me crazy, and that got out of a lot of my issues. Except now everybody keeps giving me unicorn gifts. Like, it's like I got all this unicorn crap in my house that I keep donating, and I'm afraid that unicorns will become like passe, so the jokes won't be funny anymore. It'll be like making jokes about chia pets or pet rocks, but I hate them so much because I feel like people, if you really, and I'm not even doing the joke now, but if you really imagined a horse with a bone dildo coming out of its face, charging at you, and they get them out, and they all like, oh, well, they can fly. And unicorns don't fly, it's Pegasus that flies. So they get their facts wrong. So I don't see, you can see I'm getting off on this unicorn thing. It makes me
That's
sick.
funny. That's a unique topic, and it made me laugh just that you're talking about it. So that's awesome. What are your plans for the future in comedy? I know right now with the PC culture, the cancel, the pandemic, nobody knows jack diddly about our future, but what would you like to accomplish the rest of your life in comedy?
Um, well, I'm hoping that the openness that we currently have with women, and being an older, woman myself, I hope that continues because I think uh, I'm not so worried about the cancel culture. I'm kind of think it's great that people are embracing transgender, people of color. Um, so that's really cool to see. Um, I told myself when I started this that I wasn't going to do it for money, or I wanted to do it because I loved it, because I've written for money all my life. I mean, not only for money, but it was my job. And so I told myself, the moment that you get too hung up on this, or it isn't making you happy, then get out of it. And so far, I am very happy doing it. And as long as I can do it. And I don't mean to keep my expectations low, but I don't want to set myself up and go, oh, if I don't accomplish this, I'll be devastated.
Yes.
So I really want to get back on live stages, and I still want to do more Zoom, and yeah, just keep going until I become depressed and feel like it's killing me.
I would love you to talk for the next 3 to 5 minutes about anything I didn't ask you that you feel is important for you to get some of my friends and fans to love you. So you get the time to talk about anything, where to find you, how to plug you, or what you're looking for in a fan, or
Oh,
anything you want to say that I didn't even ask you. Go for it, Ginny.
well, I would hope, so many, there's so many opportunities to do comedy right now, and free shows as well. And I'll, this, and to the people who've watched, I love you, love you. But um, I just want to say to my friends, all you have to do is go on Facebook or go on Zoom. And if you don't think I'm funny, you can tell me, but not at the moment. You can text me. Yes, I'm on Instagram, Gini Sikes, and I have a podcast, MDK Squad. That's podcast is on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. And that's not just me. That's 3 teams of comics. We each do an episode. We rotate 3 episodes, and great comics on there. I am. I'm a regular on Lunch Therapy, Joe Marshall's podcast, and I guess I like to explore things that that maybe not everybody has, and that's hard to do because comics cover everything. I don't tend to talk about dating because I don't, or sex because I don't want. And but it's also finding that common ground that somebody who's young and somebody who's older will like, which is hard. I mean, when I was young, I didn't want to hear about somebody talking about, giving an organ recital about their rusty vagina or their gallstones. So it's trying to find relatability, to what people, and I feel like unicorns, I kind of like that because most people like them, and I think it's crazy. So that's something I like to
So
talk.
funny.
Yeah. And I just want to open myself up so that uh, I just want to, open it up to whatever experience I can, comedic experience I can get.
And you appreciate fans. I know you do, because you're always thanking them, just like you did right now, that you love them. And that's such a great um, aspect of Ginny Sikes, that you're so appreciative.
Well, when you were a kid and people who would laugh at you, how much you not laughed at you because you were homely, but laughed at you because you said something funny. How great that made you feel. I have friends that are really supportive of me doing this, and they have from the very first bad moment, like where you're learning and stuff. So yeah, I really appreciate people. And again, I can't say enough about the community of comics that I've been meeting over COVID, like yourself.
Yes, thank you. It's been so fun in a lot of ways. COVID has, when there's a death, something can be born out of it.
Exactly.
So
I
I'm
think you're going
glad
to see a
that.
lot of art, not just comedy, but novels, paintings, dance performances, whatever, that have been inspired by living in quarantine and the pandemic.
Absolutely. So, do you have like in anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about from the time you were a child to getting into comedy to things you've accomplished or want to continue to do? Did
All
I miss
I would say
anything?
is I did write a book about a year I spent with female gang members. It's called 8 Ball Chicks. And it's funny because anybody who knows me personally is like, how did you go into the, what was then referred to as the ghetto? And I was like, you can't fake who you are. Like I couldn't come in there. I mean, I do have a persona as a journalist in that I have to compartmentalize at times, if you're seeing something really awful or graphic or terribly sad, you can't necessarily break down. On the other hand, you have to be true to yourself to get people to open up to you. And I just thought it was so funny that the girls that I met who were members of gangs, one of them said to me, I'd rather be in a drive-by shooting than in a car with you. You are such a terrible driver. And and I was, so one of them said, it's like Lucille Ball goes to the ghetto. And again, we don't say ghetto anymore, but that was the word at the time. And I mean, it was stuff like this girl took out a really tiny gun and I thought it was a lighter. And I took it from her and I said, oh, is this a lighter? And she snatched back. She goes, no, it's a 22. So those are things that, I'm not necessarily proud of, but they kind of sum up my personality. I have a serious side and then I have a wacky side, and they somehow get together.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm going to post this video and I'll put on there the places. I'll put your introduction that has everything in it. If there's any other place you want followers that you said that's not in your interest, send it to me right away so I can get that. You mentioned lunch therapy with Joel Marshall and another place where you're a regularly, but the other one is in your intro. So I can remember lunch therapy, but any places else where you want following or upcoming shows?
Instagram. Oh, I am on a show. Oh, tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, February 17th, I'm doing a comedy contest at Flappers. It's the Uncle Clyde Comedy Contest. And yes, please come because you vote on your favorite comic. And that, and then Saturday, I am doing Jimmy Shin's Shindig show, and I'll be promoting those on my site with the links.
Wonderful. So send me those two, would you please, so that I can get them on here.
I will definitely do that.
And I also put my thoughts about interviewing you, like how I felt when I was interviewing you. And if you wouldn't mind sharing it on Instagram and Facebook, I would appreciate it.
Oh, I would love to.
Thank you, Gini Sikes. Send me anybody you want me to interview.
Oh, terrific. I will. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you. This has been fun. Bye. Love you lots.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.